right. Good morning. We'll start with correcting a motivation with refuge and bodhicitta. Actually, before that, we'll make a mandala offering as a token for requesting the teachings, and then Geshe will lead the way with refuge and bodhicitta for correcting a motivation. So for those of you who are familiar with that, you're welcome to join in. And for those of you who are not familiar, you can just kick back and relax. Let's share the screen and start. Sa shi po ki ju shi ne to ra ri ra li shi ni de ye pa di sa ye shi me te ro pa gi ro ku nanda shi la je pa soi dang guru ratna ma
Indra Gadiya Daya Sangye Chedang Soji Chonam La Chanchu Bardu Dang Kyabzin Dagi Chushi Yeban Dagi Drolam Benshi Sangye Drubarasho Sangye Chedang Soji Chonam La Chanchu Bardu Dang Kyabzin Dagi Chushi Yeban Dagi Drolam Benshi Sangye Drubarasho Sangye Chedang Soji Chonam La Chanchu Bardu Dang Kyabzin Dagi Chushi Yeban Dagi Drolam Benshi Sangye Drubarasho Kangi Tuzeni Zone Tawa Tamche Pambi Chere Tambi Chun Tenze Kwadam Kela Chanse Lo Good morning everyone. Teringanzu Samdi Niba Tundum Chanju Kisem Jong Rambasheva Direshas.
So good morning, everyone. We are looking at a text that is called Mind Training Like the Rays of the Sun. We've covered some distance in the text. We've covered the first section of the text that explained the way to train in conventional bodhicitta. And today we're going to begin with the second part of the text, which is teaching the way to train in ultimate bodhicitta, the ultimate awakening mind.
Direta The Tundum Chanju Gisem Jeshasa Tzu Di Tombani Tobi Sherab Teres. The Tombani Tobi Sherab Di Tenza number Sanji Chu, Tinani Tebochim Chu Di Ninji Zawakiwi Chanju Semdang and Tombani Tobi Sherab Nibodi Songre Chinda Nyamne Chegoyachik. That is all Chagoras.
And so this section of the text begins with that we're going to start with today's teaching the way to training ultimate bodhicitta, the ultimate awakening mind, which in essence has to do with developing the wisdom that realizes emptiness. This is what it teaches, the way to develop wisdom that realizes emptiness. So here, as followers of the Buddha Dhamma, not only that, we follow the Mahayana Dhamma. The training that we take up is training in the man of enlightenment that is rooted in compassion. And we then need to combine that together with wisdom that realizes emptiness.
Terda di kechenbu shuchkira, da di kechenbu shuch chagores. Di ya kasata senda mazuna tekba chimbi chuse ani chenbu ta desa ki shirodi chanju semda ki tombani tobi sherab ani sondun deba telaya jargi oros ra.
And for us, this section is very important. For as we train in the Mahayana Dharma, the very foundation for the training in the Mahayana Dharma is to train in first off the mind of enlightenment, bodhicitta, which is rooted in compassion, and wisdom that realizes emptiness. That is the foundation of our training.
Teresa, da bena sherab ra namju kazu yoba inaya pi da ji namju kazu yoba inaya sevi samba ki masina ani namju lokbala ya rogu yoba ra ngan zambilina la ya ta tongde di chago ros di da lo ni don chugi kon chomden de ta zambilin de la songde de tagaran re dos ra pi sherab kazu yoba inaya taksam sewa ki mandana pejo lokbachi ani sewi ki lela ya droya sewi chawa la droya ro lega kang cheba di chawa kang cheba di rangji niga la ya hajang ka nötsi jingi chawa la ya droya di ani tindri ki pe chawa che tuya di jada namju la ya tengo res da di sewi lela droya di sewi mandang ka wangi ninji ki sambe mandang ka wangi sewi lela droya chi ro sewi sambe dangwa ina 아니 심지어 탐질이야 팬디 드루퉁인기 산지 공부한테 드루퉁이야 봐. 근데 리지 송고도 왔어요.
And so we develop our wisdom, we develop our intelligence. But if our wisdom is not combined with a sense of care for others, with love for others, it can be used in the wrong way. It can turn towards the wrong way. The Buddha spoke about it 2,600 years ago, and it's still relevant to this point in time. So that if we develop a wisdom, but our wisdom is not combined with a sense of care for others, with love for others, and it is used for harming others, we can harm ourselves and we can harm others. Whatever we do, you could say, can become efficient. It depends upon the wisdom that we have, the intelligence that we have. So if we end up using that for harming others, we use that on account of not having cultivated enough love and concern for others. Whereas if we do cultivate love and concern for others, we can use that for the benefit of others, for the benefit of all living beings.
다 딘자 다 디로지 실샤한다 송고서래 딘자 다 된동 찬주기 샘 종was 로 피저 직보기 로 인지 직보기 아니 네버 텐투게지 용구 메인서레스 로 아니 인지 삼바여바 아니 셔럽여바 딘지고 앉아 다 셔럽디 컨트레스레 셔럽디 조 유기 비 우유네스 아니 네루 강인바티 아니 땡라 파 통행기 남주들이야 아니 로 더 쪼데르다 된동 전주고 샘세야디 당 우송도 또마도 세데 당 요보르지도 마도 안 딘디기 찬데다 된동 전주고 샘세고레스 더 딜레 라고 그레스 무유네스 율기 비기 아니 일룩 강이 바디 아니 또비 로라에 라고 그레스.
And so these are the bases. This is the foundation for the training that we take up. Training in love and concern for others, which constitute the foundation for conventional bodhicitta. And we train in ultimate bodhicitta for developing wisdom, for if we just develop compassion without training in wisdom, it will not be strong enough to accomplish our goal, to be of maximum benefit to others. So here, when we take up the training in ultimate bodhicitta, we're training in developing an insight to the way that things exist, an insight into reality. So when we examine more closely what ultimate bodhicitta is, there are certain attributes to ultimate bodhicitta. It has to be a perceptual consciousness, but without getting into all those the nitty-gritty bits. When we look at the essence of ultimate bodhicitta, the essence of that is the development of wisdom that realizes the way that things are, the way that things exist.
Terda re pena yulgi neluk ra yulgi netsul shingoya karesna yulgi neluk topic sherab diplomatuna ani sherab shemba kazus yobayna ya ani chagdan cholong gi jesun royachi ro chagdan cholong gi jesun roshag sares da yulgi neluk khain badi bigi ani ngubi neluk khain badi topic ani namju di yobayna ani cholongda chagdan cholonggi wandu mandroya da demba dengyang ki tolayan rotugechi yunguyores ra.
So here we seek to develop wisdom that realizes the way that objects exist, the way they are. And without the wisdom that realizes the way that things exist, we might have other levels of wisdom, but they would be affiliated with states of mind which are the partiality of anger and attachment. And for that reason, we need to realize what reality is, the way that things exist. We need not to come under the sway of the partiality of anger and attachment, not to be controlled by anger and attachment, but to realize the way that things are. And that realization of reality, the way that things are, is what will make sure that we will not come under the power of partiality.
re sanji chela ya cholong gsambati ra chagdan cholong gsambati ani dorgoyagi lodi rendas cholong chena da cholong chena su chosolong bayna ya mandigwa jires ra sanji bi chosolong bayna ya digiyo mari sanji ba mayin bi chosolong na ya digiyo maris ra pena sanji chok pi sanji chol ya chagbai chebana chagbi lori tian cholong re digiyo maris torjaris kanji ani decha shedan temu la soba di lo di yul kandrajila ya tegiyo bayna ya ani kugun zindan di shinjulo dinza lo di torjaris da di torba chebala ya yul neluk tobigi neluk onsum tobigi tendam chanju gi semla ya labgu dos di sama torba chebala ya tendam chanju gi sem da tendam chanju gi semro pa ger tawndi chanju ninji da chanju gi sembi ani sambe konilandi tomba nyungosum tobi ishi jilaya ani tendam chanju gi semse gores da delab gores.
And so what we need to rid ourselves of is the partiality of anger and attachment. The sense of partiality is not a right state of mind for us, regardless of whether we're Buddhist or non-Buddhist. That sense of partiality of anger and attachment is certainly not a suitable state of mind for us. So for us, even as Buddhists, you can say that if we develop a sense of attachment to the Buddhist side, to the Buddha, or to the Buddhist side, again, that sense of attachment, which is a partial state of mind, is what we need to rid ourselves of. And so when we look closely at our disturbing emotions, afflictions, anger, attachment, and so forth, we can recognize that their mode of apprehension is in error. It is erroneous. And this is what we need to eliminate. We need to eliminate our sense of mistake, this erroneous mode of apprehension of the partiality of anger and attachment. And to do so, we develop an insight into reality. And therefore, this section of the text that we're going to cover, that we're going to start today, that explains the way of training in ultimate bodhicitta, essentially is teaching the way to develop wisdom that realizes the way that things are, that realizes reality. We call it wisdom that realizes emptiness, but since here we're looking at a particular type of wisdom that realizes emptiness, a wisdom that is called the ultimate mind of enlightenment. This type of wisdom is supported by love and concern for others, which are the roots or the foundation for conventional bodhicitta, and they support or they are combined with the development of ultimate bodhicitta, wisdom that realizes emptiness.
대다들이 대단 이보 튼tum 찬주기 샘 종와라 강런 된비 율스 아니 율 강라질이야 아니 튼tum 찬주기 샘 땡고 그래서 튼tum 찬주 샘 종 땡비기 뒤 강라질이스 튼tum 찬주기 샘 종이 담방뭐 그래서 담보 내롱기 최단 댐발레 댐바 차이스 내롱기 다 간지 내롱기 최선한다 내롱기 최 내드롱행 간사텔에 댐바이나 아니 펜 비캅다 아니 지 가게 메비캅 텐디지기 간사질에 댐바 차이 젠도는 이번 기위체르스
And so when we look at a section that explains the way to train in ultimate bodhicitta, it says, in training in cultivating the ultimate awakening mind, there are three factors, or three sections, you can say. First off, the type of person to whom the instructions should be given, which means that first of all, we should assess whether the teachings on the ultimate mind of enlightenment can be given to someone that is a suitable recipient or suitable vessel. Then next is the time for imparting the teachings. And finally, the actual instructions on cultivating the ultimate awakening mind. And when we begin with the type of person to whom the instructions should be given, it says, first of all, this teaching should be given to someone who possesses the qualities of a suitable recipient. To do so otherwise would be the cause of a transgression.
어디래졌다 사제 당부대로 내롱 규칙단 댐발라 댐버 차세디 젠도는 이번 기회스 세디 저당 개체부 쇼직다 아니 산지 좀 된 디기 추출티 추디 댐발라야 내롱기 도셔 예마인 따고야디 저당 그 전에 배 개체부 인사레스로 뭔가 끼워 담보 추 내롱기 도셔지다 많테나 추 태버침비 추디 아니 자원이니 송구여서 말했어. 배 찾아와는 산지 좀 된데 뭐보고 산지니. 안다 두지 체도 산지니. 아니 두절에 최대원디. 아니 두제 용시 질이야. 그러면서 다 통무 두지 나올이야. 두제 용시 질이야. 그나데 상부생이. 그런 유용 질이야. 아니 최대요레스. 디난신기 디네마 시원디 따지 최 아니 원이게 다 최대의 라마 센터 속이 아니 메톡즈볼이야 최시기에서 말했어. 비때 메텔이야. 시에기 갑도 뒤 300그 메질이야. 최대 시바나 아니 최대기 펜도여 봐. 디 마인비기 메질이야. 최대 시바나 빼는 직대 로 센데 찍볼이야. 아니 텐딩 예딩이 센드난기 직규변조다 아니 닝군년달라 소바 텐질레 시우 질레야 아니 남딩이 차딩이 메질레야 아니 개와 치마던 제비기 닌종던 제비기 최드 셰바이나 미디셈라야 바구 말와스로 미디셈라야 롤 태그 말 가서 소순 되된 조디 디 책임해봐서 소순 되된다 만제비기 깨진 시온디 먼저 미스이나 로로 바구 말했어. 로로 마바봉에 질래야 최드 셰바나 최디 펜토고요 말았어. 간지 최든 직된세 베드 카가 딜리지 뭐인자 너롱 도자세 베 계셔보러 다 딘디 된상다 아니 딱 가정마정으로 셰되거라 가시질 펜거다 용시지 라 용시질래야 this pengar mother mancha pento be khaburendo sero susu pin susu nyamnyong ro shabana and then in the lo gesa chikleya and zinde chi ma cha chen samba namda cheni ro samba namda cheni 시에바 인데이네야 원에 지 펜도 전부지 연구도 상승기 소라스 기 조마송스
So it's so important to make sure that the teachings are given to someone that is a suitable recipient, a suitable vessel. The great masters of the past have examined who is a suitable vessel and who is not a suitable vessel for receiving certain instructions, certain teachings. And teachings, for example, on the Mahayana Dhamma were not given to those who were not of the dispositions or the affiliations which were requisite for receiving teachings on the Mahayana Dhamma. So then here when we look at how such teachings were given, like for example, the Buddha having attained a state of enlightenment, he gave initial teachings for a small group of disciples. This is at least how it is explained from the viewpoint of the common presentation. So the first group of people that the Buddha taught having attained a state of enlightenment is now those 5 disciples, which are called the 5 close disciples of the Buddha, which for us indicate that teachings should be given to a certain person, to a group of people, once the time has come for them to receive those teachings, rather than teaching whatever one wants or to no matter what the audience is. So just to illustrate that, suppose that there is someone that is strongly interested in the affairs of this lifetime only, which means that someone that is solely invested in the pursuit after possessions or wealth, social status, fame, reputation, or what have you. So for someone that is solely interested in the affairs of this life, it is not really suitable to teach them about the determination to live cyclic existence, what we call renunciation. It doesn't really suit their mentality. Then they're not going to be able to work their head around the details in developing the utmost determination to live cyclic existence, which means that it's another way of saying that if you give teachings on renunciation to a person like that, it's not going to help them. And therefore, we recognize that there is a great difference between the Dhamma and between the mundane. They are different. And therefore, when we look at the way that teachings are given at the present, where all sorts of teachings are given to different groups of people, it is very difficult to help the majority of people that, or to benefit a majority of people that attended certain teachings. At least Geshe says that having been here for 8 years and trying to teach with a mind that is as genuine as possible, it's really difficult to benefit everyone or to benefit most people in the audience using teachings. At least Geshe hasn't really generated that feeling so far, that of certain sets of teachings that were given here, that they were hugely effective to most people in the audience.
최대 딘디기 시우기 아니 자첨부 차고야 균젠스기 요마로 미 망치야기 로라에 슝금에 반자 아니 다 개첨부 차 손주로지 난 딜리로지 소르도 이제 간지 아니 네롱질이야 간 정바이나 네롱질이야 또 삼원에 타는 게 최고나마도 아니 마삼게 덴지질이야 아니 추그 네루 페날 네루 tom바니 텐도지 아니 워드 제도바나 쇼지기 페네 아니 펜도 연구여서레스 돈타니 친 아니 미디기 셈규든 요르 투여서레스 당한도 추려야 균딩기 추려야 로카초야디 아니 페 슈크세다 마스나타 마위 쇼지 레고고 올라 여데 요지글이야 아니 추토니 깨제시바나 디기 아니 펜토야도 배 가부차기도 왔어요.
And we can see that in how the great masters of the past, the holy beings of the past, have given teachings. It's not that they gave teachings to some followers, to some disciples that were not the right teachings for them and still persisted in doing that. So that attitude is not beneficial. So teachings are to be given to those who are suitable recipients for this set of teachings. So, for example, here when we look at the teachings on emptiness, when emptiness is being introduced to someone that is a suitable vessel for this set of teachings, it would be greatly beneficial to them, so that as those teachings are imparted week after week, then the person will go through mental transformation. So then we should think whether we are suitable recipients of those teachings. We might find that not only we have zero inclination towards such kind of teachings, it might be even below zero. Lego legola den
에고 어디다 오늘 간다진 neuron기 춘된데 시뉴 냠나스 로 오늘 neuron기 춘된데 제대로 시뉴 냠나스 아니 디 세만남진 쓰리 도월레는 메시땅 추jel레는 추시따 잔주선바 런던기 리는 세마탈시 시송바따 치르기 릉하기 세말레 바버 뉴소스.
And so, first of all, as we're looking at the section that explains what to whom those teachings should be given, it says those teachings should be given to someone who possesses the qualities of a suitable recipient. To do so otherwise will be a cause of a transgression for both the teacher and the disciple. Now, if you wonder how you can tell who has the qualities of a suitable vessel, here it says Chandakiri supplement to the middle way, but Geshe said that it is from the Pramana Vartika, a text that was composed by Dharmakirti, another Indian scholar. So it says, just as from seeing smoke, there's fire, and from seeing waterfall, there's lake. So from observing these characteristics, you will know the lineage of one having the mind of a bodhisattva.
디모스우르자 오늘 세마치다고 시나스 세마 간다진고레스라운디 동반이 이땀 서드 티비세 가구르랑 바탕 대탐비 류기 세마 바부당시 미니 치먼트로소 멘트윈 세만조는 겨데 어먼주벌레 소수케위 되나와 동반이 되나 난도 랍도 가와 양다 양든 종 랍도 가와 레 총이 치미 미글레시 류기 바부 당기와 카인바 텔라 조베 산지기 사베 로이 사베예스 테니 니버 템비 느는 디인디 셰소스.
And so you will be able to gauge suitability from external physical and verbal signs. But then it says, what would these signs be like? If when hearing instructions on emptiness for the first time, you feel a pleasure, joy, and rapture that gives rise to such physical symptoms as the bristling of your hair and tears welling up in your eyes, these are unmistaken signs. So the supplement to Nagarjuna's treatise on the middle way, this is a text that was composed by Chandakirti. It says, when an ordinary being on hearing about emptiness feels great joy arising repeatedly within them, and due to such joy, tears moisten their eyes and the hair on their body stand up, that person has in their mind the seed of complete enlightenment and is a fit vessel for intimate teachings on emptiness.
어디다 딘리질이야다 동반이 템바이나 셰바이나다 펜도요리 손다 간조라 아니 동반이 콜시온디 가구르응 바탕 아니 지 류기 바쁘다와 mini chiwan chuwala soba. Ani yungun du mundura. Odu chiksam tamay na. Dipa shani, tomba nying kor shewandi. Ani amju tsagda 쇼메 제시에도 드리는 거라다 딘디질이야 우주견 동반이 셔봐이나 아니 산기기 출이야 산기기 출있다 추수스 줘야기 년가 요리스 어 딘디 송 요리스라.
And so when emptiness is taught to a person like that, it is helpful, right? So it says that if the emotional reaction that we get to such teachings is that the hair on our body is standing on end and tears are welling up in our eyes, then that is indicative of being a suitable vessel for this set of teachings. Whereas contrary to that, if when we listen to teachings on emptiness, we think that what's the point in those teachings? No, not only that, we can say in English, like your ears bleed when you listen to teachings on emptiness. Well, that's is an indicative that those teachings on emptiness are wasted on you.
드리다 너무라 셰나스 가식 머머시 짜비고네 돈이 봉원 줄라. 라 빵나 좀 된디기 땜비 님보 순총이 쉐방비 레기 레왕기 nganrum muntu can be cheros.
And so next, the text says, if emptiness is taught to unsuitable recipients, some fearful and without faith will turn away from it. And if they abandon it, they reject the essence of the transcendent subdued, the Bhagavan teachings. And due to their spurning the truth of that doctrine, they will wander endlessly through the realms of ongoing existence.
가식 매바 단낭 여장 동반이기 된 로버 송유 왕기 동비 된 매비 된도 냠도 출니 까나기 렌델에 체드 소비 양사 첨부 송원 기비체로스.
Some who have superficial faith will mistake the meaning of emptiness and assume it means non-existence, thereby developing a nihilistic view. Due to such distorted thinking, they will plummet over the precipice created by ignoring the specific consequences of positive and negative actions.
그래서 로잔다 하르셰바다위 뇌기 친이다 덴발라셰나 동바 덴중기 된 신주 몰로보 코니 동일라 퇴숨 공비 냠슬렘비 뇌롱기 귤 수rum 넘바타보 송어소 탑 차남다 덴비고니 동니지 또바 탈람 넘버 타본 규비 체디 오문주골레 따도 수rum 양다 란디 네버귤 짐버 동원 규신 인지원 템버체 zobo gomshi di gewa chanchudu drover chashi yonsu ngojeji zobi chanchu samba namlo kubachi she somba taros.
However, the text continues, if these teachings are given to those characterized as explained above as suitable recipients, due to their faultless understanding of emptiness as conveying the meaning of dependent arising, the realization of emptiness will become a totally pure path to liberation. This is because they will maintain all the aspects of the method side of practice, such as purely safeguarding their ethical discipline, which is what qualifies them as suitable candidates for taking the practice of hearing, contemplating, and meditating on emptiness to heart. Similarly, the supplement to the middle way says they will always adopt pure ethics and observe them, will give out of generosity and cultivate compassion, and will meditate on patience. Dedicating such virtue entirely to full awakening for the liberation of wandering beings, they pay respect to accomplished bodhisattvas. Such are suitable recipients for those teachings.
Terdajidan only ta yongro da nguji kabdlina da zu dindinanola ya har shebata bin higi tsinye de dembala shena tomba denjongi tenshinji malobo kone sonyati. 동부 땡종기 땡종 동비 텐세다 다 개체슈디로 아니 디나마다 장미 콘토사 조디 Pandan Dava Trabalaya, Tugulas, Pandan Dava Trabigi, Tombi Tensondi, Tong Sadi, Rawangi Tomba, Rawangi Tongri Slawandi, Shenjilaya, ten in Joach, Sunguyaba, Shenjilaya, ten in Joari Slawandi, Rawangi Tomba Imbach, it's Korangi, Tengi Kodea, or Dig Nenga Dita, and Tony Tendres, Tong Slawandi, Rawangi Tomba. Ten Jones Lawandi, Rawangi Tomba. Kanji, or Dinza, and a Tomba Denjong turned, Denjong Tombi turned to Kovach Chombaina, Teni, that Tony Tubi turned out in the Jugar Sanji Combadian Diris, the Dindi Samlogia Baina, and it chew Kandajin Tombaina, and it Rawangi Tomba Tondea. Rawangi Tons, you didn't need any dodoji Yobatavigi, any Nawandi, Savanin, Lagdredge, Di Lavayana, any Jusa Chansa Medevachilaya, any Chakba the Dami Lodi, Savanin Gigasamaris, Chardang Lo Magidi, and Chardana Dembi, Lang Embassy, this I am missing what is. The Masana Lang Embal Dembi, David Dunga, the Joyoma, the Dindigi, and Dungar Garamba di. And Tomba Denjong Tombi turned to Koni, Dindigi Nilu Delaya, Lo Kombi Wangi, and Dungar Pansu Ramba Dita, Sanji Chugi Imboteres.
And so when it says here at the beginning of the paragraph that we've read, however, these teachings are given to those characterized as explained above, suitable recipients, due to the faultless understanding of emptiness is conveying the meaning of dependent arising. The realization of emptiness will become a totally pure path to liberation. So we will speak about it in great details in the next following the next few sessions or few pages that we're going to cover. But the meaning of that is given here in an abridged manner. So due to the faultless understanding of emptiness is conveying the meaning of dependent arising. So the meaning of emptiness is dependent arising, and the meaning of dependent arising is emptiness. In that when we think of the meaning of emptiness as taught by Chandakirti in his supplement to the Middle Way, the meaning of emptiness is dependent arising. In that we take emptiness to mean that this particular phenomenon in question does not exist independently. It is empty of independent existence. And if a certain phenomenon is in question is empty of existing independently, what it indicates is that it exists independent upon others. If it exists independent upon others, it is empty of existing independently. And therefore, the meaning of emptiness is dependent arising. And the meaning of dependent arising is that phenomenon in question is empty of existing independently. So then when we look at the way that things appear to us, phenomena appear to our mind as if they exist objectively, in and of themselves. But still, when we realize the meaning of emptiness, that there is no such independent existence, objective existence, those appearances of objective existence completely disappear. And when that happens, then there would not be anger and attachment arising in our mind. And if there are no anger and attachment arising, it would be impossible to create actions which are promoted by anger and attachment. And if such actions or karmas are not created, there would be no suffering being experienced. And therefore, then when we think of dependent origination, dependent arising, which is the meaning of emptiness, that will lead us along the stages of abandoning all the suffering and all the obscurations that keep us in samsara.
Taniba Tundam Chanchu, Sam Jongshibi Tunis, Temba Tomni Sawantin Shesondis, Chirteba Chimbi Rigjin Lamlan Jubu Tsula, Tomer Tony Gitawa Tember Cheni, 치 탑진 찰라 죽보 예메 웬간 디비 루기 통을 문주 추지 셈바다 무시 젠전다 찬주 되니지 찬주 이야라 단체바 레벌 콤발레 탑지 찰라 콤바템비 제수 상원 된담비 찬주기 셈종 템비 루이노스
And so next, when we look at the time for imparting the teachings, the text says, when stability has been attained, impart the secret teaching. So the text is the 7-point mind training. This text, mind training like the rays of the sun, is the commentary to the 7-point mind training. When stability has been attained, it says, impart the secret teachings. The way people of the great vehicle lineage generally venture into the spiritual path is that they initially stabilize the view of emptiness and subsequently engage in the aspects of practice concerning method.
그래서 찬주선 템비 루이노스
And then it says, however, according to this tradition, you first deeply contemplate the 4 fundamental topics of the preliminary practices, and then in the actual practice, you become well acquainted with the awakening mind and its attributes, seeking the meaning of enlightenment in the interest of others. In this tradition, it is only after you have stabilized your acquaintance with the aspect of method that the secret teachings concerning the cultivation of the ultimate awakening mind is imparted.
레다디 뒤도 된 거라 다 뒤된 온디게 제단 전담 찬주 그 샘종시 뒤텔라야 뒤텔라로 댄사기 율 뒤텔라야 니용그레스 지글야 담본니 비 또만인 때니 되니 아니 동번닝기 통니 아니 찬 닌지의 찬주고 셈라야 주니 아니 비기게 가서다 탑신이 뭐디 아니 냠내치는 조지 아니 상기 공부 중인지 지글야 통말 비기게 디나 소만나 신기 치워메 딱봐 아니 단주 텐체와 개왕하시 레균젤라 소비기 닐룩테 안 텔라테니 아니 단인지다 찬주그 샘종주그 럼바디시 안 디피기 템부 차원디 아니 테니스 상원 텐담비 닐룩시에니 야 트기당 그럼바 니예베나니 감딜 아니 담부 찬주그 샘로 소비기 람종 그럼바디 찬장 송유타니 다 텐담비 닐룩시에스 그럼바 디리에스 감디 디리에스.
And so the time for imparting the teachings of emptiness here is explained giving 2 scenarios. So there are 2 ways of doing that. The first one is concerning a person that from the outset is being taught the meaning of emptiness. And having taught them emptiness, the person is being taught how to develop compassion and then bodhicitta, so that they take into the practice the combination of method and wisdom, in depends upon which they then attain the state of Buddha. Now, the second scenario is that a person is first taught about death and impermanence, about a precious human body with freedoms and richnesses, how they are of great advantage. It is difficult to find a body with freedoms and richnesses, and it is easily lost. They're being taught about past and future lives, about karma, actions, and the results. They develop renunciation. They're being taught about the drawbacks of samsara. They are being taught about renunciation. They're being taught compassion and bodhicitta. And only after that, teachings on emptiness are being imparted. So of those 2 scenarios, here the text follows the second one. First of all, the method side, the stages leading up to the development of conventional bodhicitta is being taught to that person. And then comes the time to impart the secret teachings on emptiness on that person.
Reda di tambu tomba nil teni chanju semla ya lobngi di chidan cheba no ombu nombu sonyores ro teba chimbu rigji ombu nombu di tambu tomba ningi ten sam ani tomba ningi ten thwal teni ani ta tomba pi tomba tenjong ten thwandi tenin jongwa set ro cheta che tenin jongwa res lawandi ngazu tsama lo chigla chig tenchin yoba 소소라야 되게 강요바디 아니 지 란기 라완트 초 마이바 셴라 되는 조아인바 아니 댄시기 셴디야 소소라야 까진 친구인바 두 직상원디게 아니 섬전 탐지 비기 년도 따야지다 섬전 탐지라야 아니 지 세번인지 친구 계지 딘지기 왕게 섬전 탐지기 된직 마드나 지금도 삼비기 아니 삼롱 코리아 대야다 심전 탐지 된딩 말하는 최고 삼비 로더블 소바 딘디 용거 다 딘디 로더블 레원디 아니 동반이라야 죽시 냠nen치니 딘디지 대바 챔비우리지 엄부 농부기 람냠슬렌서 그런 바디 도르드나 딘디지 에 차고레스.
And so here, looking at the first scenario in which, first off, emptiness is being taught to a certain individual, that person is someone of sharp faculty, someone that is regarded as a definite Mahayana lineage person. So emptiness is being taught to that person. They think of the meaning of emptiness, and then it causes them to recognize the interdependent nature of everything, that whatever exists depends upon something. There are relationships of interdependence, and they also recognize how we as living beings, we depend upon each other, and through that they come to become grateful for the kindness of others. They appreciate the kindness of others, and it draws others as closer and closer to one's heart, and on that basis a sense of love and care arises for them. They develop great compassion to the point in which they think that the only way for them to move forward would be to become Buddhas. They think that it would be not right for me to do anything else but to attain the state of enlightenment, the state of Buddha, for the sake of others. And they develop that great determination to do whatever it takes in order to free others from suffering. So this is the stages of practice that they follow in being first of taught the meaning of emptiness, and then realizing dependent arising, the interdependent nature of phenomena. This is the way that sharp faculty practitioners progress.
다 된도 찬주 샘종기 값수스 값수스 최는 뭐는 따로 삼스 마기 리비실치 님분이냐랑 서초 람징우 꾸싱알샤 제송데스.
And so here the text says, in the context of training in the ultimate awakening mind, in the text says, and here again it's the 7-point mind training. Consider all phenomena as like dreams. Examine the nature of unborn awareness. The remedy itself is released in its own place. Place the essence of the path on the nature of the basis of all.
Terda sigdi tenda dita dordido jigshebana chena malam tawar some gores lawandi some gores lawaina malam tawar chik maim bajilaya yimba some gores se sort chik charo chigoras chena malam tawar some gores lawaina chena malam tawar res lawaina di tenda zodi chena malam tawar res malam kalaya nganzulaya malam laya ani dra manda nang yungorata dra manda nangare mado yu ngoma pigi yu tindiji tubiyor vesana tubiyo marwas inza nawanzam rawas tenashi gi cheta jede nganzulaya kang nawadi pa ani zelni 딱든 쌀니 제원디기 자원이는 주주사 매대봐 유코랑 그 토니 주주사 매대봐 아니 물론 나한테 지구지기야 레스
Here, before we continue with the actual meaning of the verse, just giving a preview to what it means. The first line says, consider all phenomena as like dreams. Rather than saying that we should think of all phenomena as being actual dreams, it means that consider them to be like a dream. In that, in a dream, we might have different things appearing to our mind, different appearances, but whatever appears to us in our dream does not exist in a way that it appears to us in a dream. It is not established like that. It is just something that appears to us in a dream. Similarly, when we look at the way that phenomena appear to our mind, phenomena appear to our mind in a certain way, but we recognize that there's a discrepancy between the way that they appear to the mind and the way that they exist in actuality. In that they appear to the mind in a certain way, but when we look for these phenomena, these imputed phenomena, within the basis, there is nothing that we can point it. We cannot find them. They appear to the mind in one way, but then when they are sought for to see if they can actually pin down and be found, we cannot really find them to exist in such a way. And therefore, this first instruction says, consider all phenomena as like dreams.
디 간저지 som당 기어스라운디 페나 내가 참말로 대원대보다 동하면 대봐 인자 아니 나라 내송 나라 펜톡송 슬라운디 나세디 비기 아니 능인다 펜통인래야 마드비 나세 비기 라왕 지여봤다지 로행기래야 ngangi chargi orosro rawan yobataw chawananshi gi zin shenje ani ngal neso slavdige neshedi be ngai jangomadiya zichin ro ani tu chineta ngal neso sambi ani tiwangi tinita kondrukela soba ani ja mende yungu orosro 다 되니 날 내송 시비 나디 문진 치 체친으로 날 컨트스 내송으로 내서 나디 칼도스 아니 날이야 아니 다심 풍부가 주 소원 뒤신 넘버 시분 풍부가 여비 안 디디네 나 칼도스로 두 세जना 니 풍부스라르마다 니수 다 나슬라운디 엔 숙디 ngal neshibi ngadil shagam yabadi sibu sejares ni sem ni chowa ni nami slawandi ta dili logs ngach yobataw rawan yobataw chi charwa nashin gi chi zeju cheda ro zeju chebaina zawa nini ani rawan gi ngach ni gi mebadi ngoyo nesures ta dip mani baina dit zeju shukchenbu chini dip mani baina 아니 시니 소와 믹스어지 끼고서스 나라네서 냠비기 로슈 타보디 아니 랑드레치 가스나 뇌시 나코라 라바이나 나라네서 냠비기 아니 소슈 타보디 라드레 임바로스로 딘디 돌아 송데 스탄바이나로 메지나 야시야도 펜도 용구요레스로 슈비기 타와 탐지게비 공부 좀 어떠냐 소소 메지나노라야지 아니 차단 그 소슈 잡고 용치는 마기바 용돼야지 용을 줘야 돼 야시야도 인사레스
And so when we consider phenomena as being like dreams, we, for example, consider the way that we as people, as being that want to be happy, people that do not want to experience suffering, react in an emotional way to a certain situation. So we think, for example, that person has harmed me, or the person has helped me. So there is a point of reference, which is me, which is I. And the way that I or me appear to our mind is if we exist independently. So whenever we think that person harmed me, or the person helped me, then we not only have an appearance of an independently existing I that appears to our mind, we also grasp it that to exist in the way that it appears to us. There is that innate sense or innate appearance of an innately independently existing self, and we grasp it that to exist in the way that it appears. And because we grasp it, that appearance to exist in a way that it appears to us, anger arises towards someone that is harming us. We consider the person as an enemy. Anger arises with respect to them. So then we start to investigate the way that I or me exist. Do I exist independently in a way that I appears to my mind when I react in such an emotive way to a certain situation? Do I exist in a way that I appear to my mind? In what way is the person harming me? How do I exist? Like, for example, as human beings, we have 5 physical and mental aggregates, which means that we have a body and mind. So the body is called the form aggregate, and we have 4 mental aggregates. So then there is a certain appearance that dawns to our mind as an independently existing person. So we find the I, independently existing I, within the body and mind that we have? Can we look for it within the body and mind and have something that we can point at the end of our investigation and single out or separate out that me, I, within our physical and mental aggregates? So we look for I within the body. We cannot find it. We, of course, say that this is my body, they've harmed my body, and therefore they've harmed me. But can we find an independently existing I within the body? We cannot find such an independently existing I within the body. And what about the other mental aggregates? So we have feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and primary consciousness. Can I or me be singled out, can be separated out when we look in those aggregates? We cannot find any such independently existing I. And therefore, when we see that such I or me are not found within them, there's a special feeling that arises in our mind. Not only that strong grasping and independently existing I is being lost, but also this emotional reaction that we think that that person has harmed me, that also is being lost. So even if we haven't got to the point where that strong holding onto an independently existing I, or that emotional reaction when we're being harmed by another person, even if that is not completely lost, certainly through performing such mode of analysis, we can reduce the emotional reactions that we have to such situations.
다 간지 돈이 된다 시야게 거든이 뭐로디 디차고레스로 낭원진단디 차기도다 비게 갈서다 민든 초세거다 민든 초세난다 둥거기 촌로 사지 균제기 온데 제바다 사미 균제기 온데 제바슬라라 아니 덴지시 온디 다 사지 균제슬라나 둥거디 칼데니 총바레스 둥거디 규 레다 뉴무 발테니 총바레스 규 레다 뉴무 초발테니 둥거 종거레슬라라 둥거디 다디 나게 레디 피게 차와드레스 차와디 콜롱 제바보지기 코넬라니 아니 차와디 남겨도 튕겨레스 다 콜롱데 카레레스 라운데 콜롱 쪼데 타르드바디 난진드레스 나 피게 랑군 트번 짐비 로디 이게 코넬랑거레스 로 콜롱 데레스라 다나 랑군 트번 짐비 로디 코넬라니 레 냠바사가 요바나 아니 나 랑군 트번 짐비 로디게 나 랑군 트번 짐바 나신게 나 랑군 트브 요리 요마르세디다 내가 타르드바디 디레스로 다 나 랑군 트브 요바이나 nga rang ngun trouble zimbi lo dela ya kyun che yo marda kyun che mengi ji ngani dunga dengris lawa na ani di ganda res ganda ta nga rang ngun trouble zimbi lo di nga rang ngun trouble zima na she nga rang ngun trouble yet me di jikpi tse ju che ro chomden di love song ani wanyu chimbuji ki she song se mai ba rikpa rangi tseju cheni rikpe lamni nga rang matruba tenla phabji yoba na ani ko zinsu de kyacha kyata ma nongchuk da nongchuk jile tene nongchuk yungro da o dinti samdang da da tandum chanju samjung kabgita ani jongi yona mena direshasro
And so when we look at this topic, emptiness, essentially what we seek to recognize at the end is who we are, to recognize ourselves as we are. So we recognize that we experience suffering. And in general, the recognition of suffering can be done in relation to the different, to the process by which things arise. So we can have a look at two classifications of phenomena, contaminated phenomena and uncontaminated phenomena. We can look at the cause and conditions contributing to the arisal of contaminated phenomena and the cause and conditions contributing to the arisal of uncontaminated phenomena. But when we look at that from the perspective of contaminated phenomena, such as suffering, we ask ourselves, in what way does suffering arise? What is the source, the origin of suffering? Well, the sources of suffering are causes which are, in short, karma and afflictive states of mind. When karma and afflictive states of mind, or actually I should say afflictive states of mind and karma come together, they produce suffering. This is a result of the meeting between karma and afflictive states of mind. And when we speak about karma, what we are referring to are actions that we take, and those actions are motivated by a certain state of mind. So the state of mind, our motivation, is taking a certain expression in our action. And when we look at that motivation, we can see that the underlying motivation in the creation of certain action is a grasping at a sense of independent self in a way that it appears to our mind. So we grasp at ourselves to exist independently. That is the very foundation of our motivation. And out of that, we end up behaving in a certain way. And when we look at a scenario by which, on the basis of that grasping at ourselves to exist independently, we end up behaving in a negative way, we can then analyze this grasping at an independent self. So do I exist independently or not? If I exist independently, grasping at independent existence is not a faulty state of mind. It is not a mistaken state of mind. It is completely spot on. So how come, on the basis of grasping at myself to exist independently, I end up experiencing suffering? There is a certain discrepancy here. If grasping at independent existence is the correct state of mind, and yet I end up experiencing suffering. Whereas if we investigate this grasping at me as if I exist independently, find that using reasons and logic that I do not exist in this way, then another outcome will ensue. So looking at ourselves as not existing independently, it's not something that the Buddha forced upon us. It's not that the Buddha said, this is my view, and now you have to accept that view. It's rather that we approach that with analysis and investigation. Do I exist independently? Do I exist in and of myself? So when we say that there is no independently existing I, we then reach the conclusion that grasping at an independently existing me is mistaken. We recognize a mistake for being a mistake. And this is the crux of the training in developing ultimate bodhicitta, ultimate mind of enlightenment.
Dirida dinza tügyündenge ra tügyündeni ane sozo rangi pigi sozo rangi la ya jebache ya sozo rangi gi nelu tene ane tonya gi chedo samlo tanyan tzu be gechimbo ra di tang tubai na ane ranshin gi sozo gi sempati pa pebu chego sares ra 다 랑 슬라운딩아 슬라운디 빼디 아니 수직이야 맞대봐 라운디 여봤다고지려야 아니 문진치 데네피 따온디기 생장장 끼연 소리 때다봐나 아니 만디 버장장 아니 마기 버장장 에 슴밤에 버장장 용기여서레스라 달 랑세디 라왕 메바 때니 조인 바치 dendriji pe rangi nelu dendriji yimbati susu semlaya ngojin tretu bayina ane ngala news ngala pense di shushu keba megirochi ra ko kari chongna keba megirochi tanyam jilaya shatu bayina chawa kari ina ya tanyam jilaya shatu bayina pakpebu yungu yasaresi ra anzu shatu mara desi yawuro chongna shu ji gawa gonggoya gawa chegoya chi 아니 테스트 만들어나 쇼지비 아니 마기바 치고야 소 동아디 배 전부 소고야 소르지 난도 시가 되는 줄 알았다 디 라야디 아니 나이 닐루 건비기 로디기 아니 따념 소투 거레스 잔디 찍버 소투 거레스라
And yet regularly when we look at our sense of I, we need to investigate whether I exist and whether I appear to me, to investigate how we exist. What is the reality of ourselves as persons? So we need to investigate that. We need to see that. We need to think about it. This is really important. And the more we do it, the more we find that our mind becomes more at ease, more vast and spacious. When we continue with grasping at ourselves as if we exist independently, with a strong sense of independent self, we turn towards others and we find faults in them. We criticize them, we see faults in others, and that can only make our mind unhappy. Whereas when we recognize that such an independently existing I does not exist, I, or me, I arise only in dependence upon others. I am independent arising when we introduce that to our mind, when we come to understand that. We find that our reaction to a certain situation is being lessened, in that we experience either, we are either being helped by others or we are being harmed by others, but the reaction that we have to those situations is more of an equanimous reaction, an even reaction, rather than reacting drastically to a certain situation. So our mind is thereby be made more at ease. Otherwise, when we look at the way that we now react to certain situation, our mind is so uneven. It strongly reacts with either great joy or with great unhappiness when something even slight happens to us. So when we start to investigate who am I? Do I exist independently, or do I not exist independently? Our mind is made more even. Rather than having that emotional reaction, our mind becomes more equanimous to either harm or to benefit.
텐도레 다디나마 식지 라 쳔놈 몰놈 다버서 마기리 위실에 제시비 갑도 아니 다 송위 피 율기 쳔티기디 율티기디 아니 라만도 메바티 시고레스 님분이 게란선 람징고 군싱알라 샤세 디기 율 징행기 다 zimba sigro zimba zimba digide ani round meba shigiyores dor duna yani zondan zimba nis le mandu bi chöjig yomares menz chötamje round meba di shigores ra.
So we said that before continuing, we're just giving a brief explanation of this verse. So consider all phenomena as like dreams. Examine the nature of unborn awareness. The remedy itself is released in its own place, place the essence of the path of the nature of the basis of all. So not only we can recognize that objects do not exist independently, but also that the mind does not exist independently. So we have, in a more strict terminology, technical terminology, objects are called the apprehended, things which are apprehended. And then there's the thing that is doing the apprehending. So apprehended and apprehender, none of them exist independently. Here it says, consider all phenomena as like dreams. All phenomena referring to objects which are apprehended, but also to the consciousness that apprehends them, that is grasping at them. All of them are like dreams in that none of them exist independently.
예, 내가 지금 담배 송이 뒤비처럼 되면 된라 파우스다. 니비는 준비 뒤비처럼 되면 된라 파우스레스. 로인비.
So the commentary says the first line indicates the method for determining the lack of true existence of phenomena, included amongst the objects that are apprehended by the mind. The second refers to technique for establishing the lack of true existence of the consciousness which apprehends things in such a way.
terda rawang de matraba da demba mesla nanda rawang de matraba sananda rawang gi tongba rangshin gi tongba rang ngun ni tribu tongba to sama lo da kansa so la ya ani pi jotang gi chani ko delu yungu ya ani mingi namda mamu ji tembare ma do tenda ngoma di ani ta tongba ni se di tenda lego resra.
Here we have different modes of expression. It says that the first line indicates the method for determining the lack of true existence of phenomena. The second refers to teaching the technique for establishing the lack of true existence. So the lack of true existence, phenomena not existing independently, not existing truly, not existing from the on-side and so forth. We have different modes of formulation, different ways of expressing it. And there are different ways of expressing it because as individuals, we're different to each other. There might be one way of expressing it that will work better for one person and another way of expressing that will work better for another person. So we have different modes of expression, but all of them are coming down on the same point, which is emptiness. They all mean the same, they mean emptiness.
terda da kanji tamje rawang gi tribu tongbare set en kenan tokpare na tiwa kashi dana yawon do sira di mena ngan kali that ma lo mo go chin den tsara.
Which means that in short, whatever exists, all phenomena are empty of independent existence. Nothing exists independently. Geshe is wondering if you have any questions rather than continuing to read through the text. Have you got any questions? So speak. Can we say that the primary consciousness disintegrates momentarily? Is that a question? Namshi di an di kechi jigi rest and the la chogerves.
Je lapcho.
Yes. Yeah, it is a compounded phenomenon.
Tokpa chimbu sasa.
Do you have like a great doubt about it? Or? You just sort of. Dela de toba menayan de laptan de tolachik. The namshi de kechi jupa then the danan de love girbes and the
Re.
chinas.
Tan jigs la ondi medro ke jadi shego samares. Jigs la ondi gyudro yak. Gyuru tendach. So di gyuru tendach. Ra anzu namshi la yan gyudro mena. Ani sem la yan gyudro me. Sem la yan gyudro mena. Ang anzu nyamnen chivi gudeme juch. Redas ra. Sem la yan gyud shuj tan yewanza. 아니 교와 같이 땅 여버디 교 땅고다 당한스러 교 땅고원서 냠내 치고 그랬어요. 드려도.
So we do say that the primary consciousness disintegrates from moment to moment. Now, just with respect to the meaning of disintegration, we might think that the meaning of disintegration is that at some point it will cease to exist. It will go out of existence. But rather than thinking that here to disintegrate from moment to moment means that it will be made non-existent, the meaning is actually that it is changing from moment to moment. It is transforming moment by moment. So it is particularly relevant to our mind, because if our primary consciousness changes from moment to moment, it means that our mind changes from moment to moment, which means that this is the very foundation for our practice. Whereas if the primary consciousness will not be changing from moment to moment, it would mean that our mind would not be changing from moment to moment, which would mean that there's no foundation for our practice. In our practice, what we are attempting to do is to transform our mind, to change our mind. If our mind is not something that is changeable, then what purpose is, what uses it there is of our practice? So it does carry a great significance, the recognition that our mind does change momentarily. So we don't really use in a language or in I guess everyday language compounded and uncompounded phenomena. Could Geshe expand on the meaning of them? There are dujibechu dan dumajibechu di la ngaso niman nemara ngaso kake tola tani di pechu shida tangi maresa dilli tonta kain ba di des gyabo shetu bainas. Well, if you ask to expand on it a little bit, kind of how many days do one Geshe to spend on speaking of? Well, I guess I can speak about it really extensively to the point in which everyone would be able to use this terminology freely.
Do much of us, Laundi. You can do much of you can do the Kinsun Duni and it chons our mind batelia and it do much of us. You don't get Mamujutsu Tony chons our telia and it do chevas. You can do chevas.
So we use those two terms, compounded and uncompounded phenomena. Compounded, or sorry, uncompounded, something that is not something that is not caused by cause and conditions is uncompounded. Whereas something that is compounded, it is composed and depends upon causes and conditions, upon the coming together of cause and conditions. This is what the difference is between compounded and uncompounded. Uncompounded, not caused by cause and conditions. Compounded are caused by cause and conditions.
The dinner yakzodi, the sangin the dinner leg doesra. Get the gain sambuj, sambu rig samatsun duni, chawandi, tigin jebudi, sambuchi yunguyoba. Get the gang embajutsun duni, sawandi, jebudi, tukjaji yunguyobachi. The 균제 땡종 세대 땡종 세대 개침부 쇼지 송대야디 뭐요 내술 땡종 토네 자기여 반자 땡종의 개침부 쇼 송으로서 땡종 그 차네 라운드 메바 땡종 그 차네 여바 땡종 그 차네 비게 따지 남자 탐지 대바 로 땡종 그 저단 야부 시바이나 되니 아니 비게 까고야 파까 랭고에 출내야기 아니 에 가서다 자와디야 제투요라서 디도 배 개첨부레서서 직지등 한수 주대 캔슬라나 디지 탐제 유견되는 종아를 슬라운디 직 사운드 무고서로 이내 디톨이야 사운드다 디 코디 띵사부 라바이나 데네베 아니 샘라야 팬도 용거리 송거라더라
That's to begin with. The compounded are those which are composed through causes and conditions, uncompounded not depending upon cause and conditions. So then when we start to go more deeply into that, into phenomena which are compounded phenomena, then we can look at the difference between positive and negative, or good and bad. In that, if positive cause and conditions come together, they produce a positive result. Whereas when negative cause and conditions come together, the result that you get is a negative result, which means that there's two levels: positive cause and conditions producing a positive result, negative cause and conditions produce a negative result. The level of causality of dependent origination, which then is a description of how things exist in reality at the level of causality. And so if they arise independent upon others, it means that they do not exist independently. They exist, but they do not exist independently. And therefore, this presentation as presented by the Buddha is tenable. So when we understand how cause and conditions work and how it is relevant to the actions that we take, we also recognize that we have the ability to act in a certain way in order to produce certain desired results. So it's good to think about it, because sometimes when we think of the first level of dependent origination, the level of causality, which explains the way that cause and conditions contribute to the production of result, we might think that, well, there's not a lot of, it's not a great point to think about it. It's pretty simple. It's not that simple in that if we go deeply into the meaning of cause and conditions produce certain results, and we fathom the more underlying meaning of that statement, then we will come to see that the description that you find in scripture is a description of a process that we can follow in order to attain a certain desired result. Jen, do you have a question? How do dreams fit in? All right. Dila chedende chi kalain ba dende sewo she tu maresa dila kasa chutam che milam tabu in sen shi sang tamina milam se adi khande chi na sti di munere thombare khande chi man dende milam kain ba di Geshe gyaptan chi yorbes. Have you never had a dream? I have a dream. You mean in this kind of, when you say consider phenomena as dreams, it's like, but the Quran the chudi munadi chutanche milam tabu yinse adila milam tabu tatandi kandachina. All right, we're getting better.
제가 물람디 나는 니세온디 물람 강다원디 간줄라야 나와 용거도 왔디 어디 잼바도 용거도 아 이내야 된다 엄마지 틴디지 총여를 했을라나라 견당고 물람 따네 엔 견니서 나라야 아니 랑부치라 소와 오면 다 메돈 담을 다 예산은 땅이라다 디데 쇼기 계란 예산안이 니세온디 나원디 열데는 된다 고마디 디 총요 말아서 디라워다 된다 나와 난신지 몰랑디 나와 난신지 된라 매버 난신 아니 추 간다지 이바이냐 나와 난신기 된라야 트비요 말세.
What it means is when we consider phenomena as like dreams is that we might have a dream at night and we wake up in the morning from a dream and we remember what appeared to us in a dream, but we also know that what appeared to us in a dream is not reality, is not real. In a sense that you might lie in bed and have a dream, and in your dream you might see an elephant or a bed of flowers and so forth. And when you wake up from sleep, you can remember what you saw in your dream. You can remember that appearance, but you also know that it was just an appearance. It's not real. So similarly, when we consider phenomena as dreams, we consider that phenomena appear to our mind in a certain way. They appear to us in a certain way, but they do not exist in a way that they appear. Okay. Dila duma jegi pe di shatu minus.
저다 갈카고로 도 디마지 디리스 멜 비기 찌 마장한지라야 땡디
Kana de kamba de la lampo che mese de la duma jegi.
고치셔랍니다. 걸 간다 아 그래서 디마지 버세디 아 교와 싸우는 드라이메 버들이야. 교와 싸우는 드라이메 버들이야. 다 교대 깬 손을 먼저 교와 싸우는 드라이메 버들이야. 디마지 버슬라고 그랬어.
So there are examples of things which are uncompounded, but to explain them, it requires kind of some time. It's like it can be really complicated. So the meaning of something being uncompounded, if we leave aside for a second, not being produced by cause and conditions, is phenomena which are uncompounded are phenomena which are unchanging. They do not transform at all. They do not change at all. This is the meaning of uncompounded, something that does not change whatsoever.
간저 리람 장댕이 지만으로 안다 아니 디마치기 센시더도 샤야 데 가사 칼에 여대기도 지래도 아 딘디지 진 그냥 신고 얘기네야 딘디 장 만용에 지래야 단 디마치 지 센시더 샤거나 깔카고도 지로 깔카고도 지 여대요레스 다 칸데요레스.
So when we go more deeply in the study of logic, there are actually quite a lot of examples of things which are uncompounded, to the point where when you train in debate and kind of in logic, you can find examples of that everywhere. But then it requires this usage of particular terminology and particular kind of an understanding of those particular terms. So if we use them outside of the system of reasons and logic, Geshe feels that it would still be pretty baffling. It's very difficult to make sense of them without the background of kind of training in that system of reasons and logic and debate. Di yado ni parolayan tomba dende auchi yorbes. Since 그런 di tomba nigi dundi shida hamakone. Yado ni parolayan tomba chi yorbes.
파동라고 해. 저는 파동라고 얘기하다. 동버스네.
So the question is for the people at home, is there any empty or emptiness between positive and negative? That was the question, right? So Geshe is wondering whether your question is whether there is like a gap or a space that is formed between positive and negative. Is that what you mean in your question? Mm. Mm. De la gong gap to che wai narwa di yagwo shioji mazimba che tucha shioji mazimba che di parolayan dende chi ne chi yorves.
디 따념 슬라바
Mm.
아 따념 세지
Mm.
따념 검수 지어레스
Mm.
이거래 디 파동들라고 말했어 단다 야다 두세디 параллея керам 파동 요레슬라바이나 아니 야다 두니보디 라운그 요바타 우로질이야 코드고 요레스
Mm.
야다 두디 라운그 요 말레스 야부세디 두짤 뜨니 시에지레스
Mm.
독자디 약불을 뜨니 시에진자 디니 빠랄 파동지 샤바이나 약부도 독자라 마되게 소리지
Mm.
차와는 디티기요 말레스
Well, sometimes it's about, the way that we speak about it also forms a certain understanding of what it is. So if you ask, is there like an empty space between good and bad? It might imply that good and bad exist independently. So you can then reach an empty space between them. So rather than expressing it like that, we speak about it differently. We say that we want to reach a state of mind that is an even state of mind, an equanimous state of mind. If we say that we want to reach that empty space between good and bad, it might imply that they exist independently, whereas in an actual fact, they can only exist in relation to each other. Something that is positive in relation to the negative, and something that is negative only in relation to the positive. If we say that there is like an empty space between them, it could mean that therefore positive is not positive is good in relation to the negative, and the negative is not positive as bad in relation to the positive. So we don't speak about it like that. We're just saying that we're reaching that evenness between them because they are positive in relation to each other. Thank you. So we will leave it here for now. We will finish off with dedicating whatever virtue or merit we've created through studying this material and discussing it. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which is arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, might quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good, all powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso. Please remain until samsara ends. Several of the snowland teachings and transmigratory beings who makes extremely clear the path that is unification of emptiness and compassion. To the lotus holder Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. And finally, long life prayer for Lam Sokra Rinpoche. You uphold the Sibu's moral way, serves in the manifold bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Majuna's victorious doctrine. O masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels. Sever of myself and others, your disciples. Please live long. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the weekend.